Synchronicity, the invisible force that connects your destiny. Carl Jung. The secret of synchronicity is not found in the grand, sweeping gestures of fate that we often see in films, but in the quiet, terrifying realization that the universe is intimately aware of the mask you wear every single day. You wake up, and even before your eyes have fully adjusted to the morning light, you are already reaching for it. The persona, that carefully constructed social skin, designed to shield you from the perceived cruelty of judgment. You have become a master of the polite smile, the agreeable nod, and the calculated silence, believing that if you can just remain small enough, pleasant enough, and invisible enough, the world will leave you in peace. But beneath that polished surface, a profound and ancient tension is brewing, a psychic pressure that Carl Jung understood as the disconnect between who you are meant to be and the character you have been forced to play. This is where the invisible force of synchronicity begins to stir, not as a reward for your compliance, but as a violent interruption of your self-imposed exile. It is the moment when the external world ceases to be a random collection of matter and starts to mirror the very parts of yourself you have tried so hard to bury. When you are trapped in the cycle of people-pleasing, your energy is diverted away from your soul and into the maintenance of a lie. You are effectively trying to trick the world into loving a ghost. Yet, the universe has a way of whispering back through the language of meaningful coincidences, those strange numinous encounters that seem to mock the laws of probability. You see a specific bird, you hear a song from your childhood, or you encounter a person who speaks the exact words you were thinking in your darkest hour. These are not accidents, but the collective unconscious reaching out to shatter the persona that has become your prison. The fear of judgment is a heavy, suffocating shroud that dictates the rhythm of your heart and the direction of your steps, making you feel as though every eye in the room is a judge and every word spoken is a potential sentence. This fear forces you into a state of perpetual performance, where your primary goal is to avoid the sting of disapproval at any cost, even if that cost is your own vitality. You have learned to anticipate the needs of others before they even voice them, morphing your personality to fit the expectations of whoever happens to be standing in front of you. This behavior, this chronic need to please, is a form of self-sabotage that creates a vacuum in your inner world, leaving you hollow and susceptible to a deep existential dread. Carl Jung recognized that the persona is necessary for social survival. We all need a way to navigate the complexities of human interaction. But when the persona becomes the totality of our existence, we lose touch with the self, the true center of our being. This is when the mechanism of synchronicity becomes most active, acting as a corrective force that attempts to bridge the widening gap between your internal reality and your external performance. It is the secret dialogue between the psyche and the cosmos, a reminder that your destiny is not a static destination you arrive at through hard work, but a living, breathing relationship with the unseen patterns of existence. When you are most lost in the effort to please everyone, the universe begins to throw obstacles in your way, glitches in the matrix of your daily life that are designed to force you to look inward. These events are often unsettling because they defy the logical cause and effect thinking that the persona relies on to feel safe. They represent the numinous, the presence of something vast and incomprehensible that refuses to be ignored. To understand the secret of synchronicity, one must first confront the terrifying depth of their own invisibility, for the more you try to be everything to everyone, the more you become nothing to yourself. You move through your days as a shadow, terrified that if you were to show even a glimpse of your authentic nature, the fragile structure of your life would collapse under the weight of others' disappointment. But this fear is the very thing that keeps you from experiencing the true magic of the Jungian path, the process of individuation. Synchronicity is the universe's way of cheering for your authenticity, often manifesting most vibrantly when you finally dare to act in alignment with your inner truth. Have you ever noticed how, in moments of rare honesty, doors suddenly open that were previously bolted shut? Or how, when you finally say no to an obligation that was draining your spirit, a new opportunity appears out of nowhere. These are not mere strokes of luck, they are the resonance of your soul finding its frequency. The people pleaser lives in a state of dissonance, a clashing of internal desires and external demands that creates a static in the field of their life. This static blocks the signals of destiny, making the world seem cold, mechanical, and indifferent. However, Jung argued that mind and matter are not separate entities, but two sides of the same coin, the Unus Mundus, or the one world. When you begin to dismantle the persona and confront the fear of judgment, you are not just changing your psychology, you are altering the very fabric of the reality you inhabit. You are moving from a state of fragmentation to a state of wholeness, and in that wholeness, the boundaries between your thoughts and the events of your life begin to dissolve. The burden of pleasing everyone is a slow poison that numbs the senses and blurs the vision, making it impossible to see the intricate threads of connection that are always present. You think you are being good by sacrificing your needs for others, but in reality, you are committing an act of spiritual cowardice, fleeing from the responsibility of your own existence. This avoidance creates a shadow, the part of yourself that contains all your repressed anger, your unfulfilled desires, and your untapped power. The more you polish the persona to please the world, the darker and more potent the shadow becomes. Synchronicity often acts as the messenger of the shadow, bringing into your life the very things you are trying to avoid so that you may finally integrate them. Perhaps you keep running into people who embody the exact traits you find unacceptable in yourself, or you find yourself in situations where your carefully managed reputation is threatened. These are not punishments, they are invitations to wholeness. The fear of judgment is essentially a fear of being seen in your entirety, of being found imperfect by a world that demands a sterile, predictable version of you. But the secret of your destiny is hidden within those imperfections. Jung believed that the self is the ultimate goal of life, and that the self speaks to us through symbols, dreams, and synchronicities. When you ignore these signs in favor of maintaining a social mask, you are essentially ghosting your own destiny. You are waiting for permission to be yourself from people who are just as trapped in their own masks as you are, creating a cycle of mutual deception that drains the world of its color and meaning. Consider the moments when you felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to change your routine, to take a different path home, or to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in years. For the people pleaser, these urges are often suppressed because they don't fit into the correct or polite way of behaving. You worry about being perceived as erratic or strange, so you stay the course, following the map that others have drawn for you. In doing so, you bypass the very intersections where synchronicity was waiting to meet you. Synchronicity requires a certain level of psychological fluidity, a willingness to let go of the rigid control that the persona exerts over your life. It is the invisible force that connects your internal state to the external world, but it can only do so if there is a bridge of awareness. When you are constantly scanning the environment for signs of disapproval, your awareness is directed outward in a defensive posture, leaving no room for the intuitive recognition of meaningful patterns. You see the world as a series of problems to be solved or people to be managed, rather than as a living oracle. The fear of judgment makes you a spectator in your own life, watching the clock tick while you wait for the right time to start living, a time that never comes because you are too busy making sure everyone else is comfortable. But the secret of synchronicity is that the right time is always now, and it is always marked by a sense of significance that transcends logic. It is that aha moment that chills the spine and brings tears to the eyes, the realization that the universe has been trying to get your attention all along, using the very circumstances of your life as a language. The depth of the Jungian perspective is found in the idea that we are not isolated islands of consciousness, but participants in a vast, interconnected web of meaning known as the collective unconscious. This reservoir of human experience contains the archetypes, universal patterns of being that influence our behavior and our destiny. The persona is one such archetype, But so is the hero, the sage, and the trickster. When you are stuck in the people-pleasing loop, you are essentially over-identifying with the good child archetype, refusing to grow into the full complexity of your nature. Synchronicity often serves to trick us out of these stagnant roles. It introduces the unexpected, the chaotic, and the miraculous to remind us that we are part of something much larger than our social standing or our career achievements. The fear of judgment is a small, petty thing when viewed against the backdrop of the cosmos, yet it has the power to paralyze a human soul for a lifetime. To break free, one must realize that the judgment you fear is often a projection of your own internal critic, the part of you that has internalized the voices of parents, teachers, and society until you can no longer distinguish them from your own. Synchronicity acts as a mirror to this internal state. It shows you the external manifestations of your inner conflicts. If you feel judged by the world, you will find synchronicities that confirm that judgment, not because the world is cruel, but because your psychic energy is focused on that frequency. However, if you shift your focus toward individuation, the synchronicities begin to change. They start to support your growth, bringing you the resources, the people, and the insights you need to step into your true power. This transition is not easy, as it requires you to face the numinous terror of your own potential. It is much easier to keep pleasing people and complaining about your lack of fulfillment than it is to stand naked before the universe, stripped of your masks, and accept the destiny that is uniquely yours. The secret of synchronicity is that it is a double-edged sword. It offers guidance, but it also demands accountability. Once you recognize that the world is responding to your internal state, you can no longer play the victim. You can no longer claim that things just happen to you. You are forced to acknowledge your role as a co-creator of your reality. This is the ultimate threat to the persona, which thrives on the idea of being a passive recipient of life's events. The people pleaser uses their mask as a way to avoid the responsibility of their own power. If they are just doing what they are told, they can't be blamed if things go wrong. But synchronicity doesn't care about blame. It cares about alignment. It will continue to nudge you, often through increasingly dramatic coincidences, until you finally pay attention to the parts of yourself you have neglected. You might find that the more you try to please a certain person, the more the universe creates situations that make that pleasing impossible. This is not the universe being mean. It is the universe being surgical, cutting away the necrotic tissue of your false self so that the true self can breathe. The sensation of synchronicity is often described as a glimmer, a brief moment where the veil between the physical and the spiritual world becomes thin. In these moments, the fear of judgment momentarily vanishes, replaced by a profound sense of belonging. You realize that you are not a mistake, and you are not alone. You are a vital part of a grand architecture that is constantly communicating with you. This is the antidote to the exhaustion of people-pleasing. When you understand that your destiny is being woven by a force far greater than the opinions of your peers, the need for their approval begins to wither away. You realize that the invisible force of synchronicity is your true guide, and that its directions are much more reliable than the fickle whims of social expectation. However, to follow this guide, you must be willing to be misunderstood by the world. You must be willing to let the persona crack and crumble, revealing the raw, unpolished, and often unacceptable truth beneath. This is where the real work begins. It is the process of looking into the abyss of your own shadow and finding the gold hidden there. Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Synchronicity is the light that illuminates that darkness, showing you the connections between your inner struggles and the outer world. The pattern of self-sabotage that is people-pleasing is rooted in a deep-seated belief that your true self is inherently flawed or unworthy of love. You believe that if people saw the real you, they would turn away in disgust, so you spend your life constructing an elaborate facade to keep them at a distance. But this distance also keeps out the very thing you crave: genuine connection and meaningful destiny. Synchronicity cannot reach the mask. It can only reach the soul. When you hide behind the persona, you are effectively muting the universe's attempts to communicate with you. The invisible force is still there, but it feels like a haunting or a series of bad luck events because it is trying to break through a barrier that you have built. The secret of transforming your life lies in the courage to be imperfectly you. When you stop trying to please everyone, you stop dispersing your energy in 1,000 different directions. You become a concentrated point of consciousness, and it is at this point of concentration that synchronicity becomes a powerful, visible stream. You start to notice that the world is not just happening to you, it is happening with you. The people who enter your life are no longer just faces in a crowd, but messengers who carry the exact information you need at that exact moment. The challenges you face are no longer just problems, but archetypal tests designed to strengthen your character. As you deepen your understanding of Jungian synchronicity, you begin to see that the fear of judgment is actually a fear of the sacred. To be judged is to be seen, and to be truly seen is a religious experience. It is to be recognized as a divine being with a specific purpose. The people pleaser flees from this recognition because it carries a heavy weight of responsibility. It is much safer to stay in the realm of the mundane, worrying about what the neighbors think, than to accept that you are part of a cosmic dialogue. But the cost of this safety is a life of quiet desperation, as Thoreau put it. Synchronicity is the universe's way of saying, "I see you." And for someone who has spent their life hiding, that can be the most terrifying thing in the world. Yet it is also the most liberating. When you finally accept the reality of synchronicity, you realize that the judgment of others is merely a ripple on the surface of a deep and ancient ocean. It cannot touch the essence of who you are. The secret is that your destiny is not something you have to create out of nothing. It is something you have to discover by listening to the rhythm of the world around you and the whispers of your own heart. The invisible force that connects your destiny is always active, even in the depths of your most self-sabotaging moments. It is there in the failures that redirected you, the rejections that protected you, and the accidents that enlightened you. The fear of judgment is the only thing that prevents you from seeing this. It is like a blindfold you have tied around your own eyes, convincing yourself that the world is dark because you cannot see the light. But synchronicity is the light that shines through the gaps in the blindfold. It is the persistent, nagging feeling that there is more to your life than what you are currently experiencing. It is the call to adventure that you have been trying to ignore by keeping everyone else happy. Carl Jung spent his life mapping this territory, showing us that the psyche is not just a collection of memories and impulses, but a living bridge to the infinite. He taught us that by embracing our wholeness, including our shadow and our persona, we can enter into a state of flow where the universe and the individual work in harmony. This is the secret of a life well lived, not the absence of conflict or judgment, but the presence of meaning. When you begin to prioritize meaning over approval, the entire structure of your life starts to shift. The people who were only attracted to your mask will fall away, and while this may feel like a loss, it is actually a clearing of the path. They were the anchors keeping you tied to a version of yourself that no longer exists. In their place, new connections will form, connections that are mediated by synchronicity. You will meet people who resonate with your true frequency, who challenge you to grow, and who see the real you, not as a flaw to be corrected, but as a miracle to be celebrated. This is the power of the invisible force. It doesn't just connect you to events, it connects you to your tribe, to the people and places that are essential for your soul's journey. But this can only happen if you are willing to step out of the shadows and face the light of your own existence. The fear of judgment will still be there. It is a human instinct, but it will no longer have the power to command you. You will see it for what it is, a ghost from your past, a remnant of a time when you needed to hide to survive. Now you no longer need to survive, you need to live. The journey toward individuation and the mastery of synchronicity is a path of radical self-honesty. You must be willing to look at your people-pleasing, not as a virtue, but as a defense mechanism that has outlived its usefulness. You must be willing to ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if I stopped trying to please everyone? The answer to that question is usually the key to your shadow. It is the fear of abandonment, the fear of being unmasked, or the fear of your own power. Synchronicity will often provide the answer to this question before you even ask it, by bringing you face to face with the very scenarios you dread. But if you meet these scenarios with awareness rather than avoidance, you will find that the judgment you feared is nowhere near as destructive as the self-betrayal you have been practicing for years. The universe is not judging you. It is inviting you to join the dance. It is waiting for you to drop the mask and take your place in the grand design. In the silence of your own mind, away from the noise of others' expectations, you can feel the pulse of this invisible force. It is a steady, rhythmic beating that matches the core of your being. It is the sound of your destiny calling to you, using the language of the everyday to communicate the eternal. The secret of synchronicity is that it is a dialogue, not a monologue. You have to talk back. You talk back by making choices that reflect your true self, by honoring your intuition, and by refusing to be diminished by the fear of what others might think. Every time you act with integrity, you send a signal into the collective unconscious, and the universe responds in kind. The more you engage in this dialogue, the more the meaningful coincidences will appear, until your life becomes a tapestry of interconnected wonders. You will no longer feel like a victim of circumstance, but like a participant in a divine mystery. The fear of judgment is the primary obstacle to this realization. It is the gravity that keeps you grounded in a mundane, colorless reality. But synchronicity is the anti-gravity, the force that lifts you up and shows you the larger patterns. It requires you to trust in the Numinous, to believe that there is a purpose to your presence here that transcends your social utility. You are not just a cog in the machine of society. You are a unique expression of the life force, with a destiny that is yours alone to fulfill. To please everyone is to fail yourself, but to follow the path of synchronicity is to honor the very source of your existence. This path is not always easy. It can be lonely, confusing, and fraught with uncertainty. But it is the only path that leads to true wholeness. Jung understood that the modern world had lost its connection to this sense of meaning, replacing the soul with the intellect and the sacred with the material. Synchronicity is the way back. It is the re-enchantment of the world. As you move forward from this moment, pay attention to the small things. The book that falls off the shelf, the person you meet at the coffee shop, the dream that feels more real than waking life. These are the whispers of the invisible force. They are telling you that you are on the right track or that you need to adjust your course. They are reminding you that the persona is just a mask and that the you beneath it is something vast and indestructible. The secret of synchronicity is that it has been with you all along, waiting for you to stop looking at the faces of others and start looking at the signs the universe is placing in your path. The fear of judgment will fade as you realize that the only judgment that truly matters is the one you make about your own life. Did you live it for others, or did you live it for the soul? The habit of people-pleasing is a heavy chain, but it is one that you have the power to break. Each link in that chain is a moment where you chose someone else's comfort over your own truth. Synchronicity is the hammer that can shatter those links. It provides the shocks to the system that wake you up from your trance of compliance. It forces you to confront the reality that you cannot please everyone, and that trying to do so is a form of madness. When you finally accept this, a strange thing happens. You become more effective, more charismatic, and more genuinely helpful to others than you ever were when you were trying to please them. Because now, your actions are coming from a place of abundance, rather than a place of fear. You are no longer giving to get approval. You are giving because you are full. This is the state of being that synchronicity supports. It is the resonance of a soul in harmony with itself. Jung's work on the persona and synchronicity is a roadmap for the modern soul, lost in a wilderness of social media, external validation, and existential anxiety. It tells us that the accidents of our lives are actually milestones on a journey of profound significance. The fear of judgment is the dragon that guards the entrance to this journey, and the people-pleasing is the spell that the dragon casts to keep you from entering. But the secret of the dragon is that it is also a part of you. It is your own repressed power, waiting to be reclaimed. When you stop fearing the dragon and start listening to its roar, you find that it is not there to destroy you, but to protect the treasure of your true self. Synchronicity is the guide that leads you past the dragon and into the light. The invisible force is not some distant abstract concept. It is as close as your next breath. It is the underlying architecture of your reality, the secret geometry of your soul. When you align yourself with this force, the fear of judgment becomes irrelevant, for you are being judged by a much higher standard, the standard of your own destiny. You begin to see your life not as a series of disconnected events, but as a coherent narrative, a story that is being written by you and the universe in a grand collaboration. This is the ultimate secret of synchronicity, that you are never alone, you are never forgotten, and you are never truly lost. You are simply being moved toward the center of your own existence, toward the moment when the mask finally falls away and you see yourself for the first time. The weight of the persona is a burden no human was meant to carry for a lifetime. It is a temporary garment, not a permanent skin. The more you cling to it out of a fear of judgment, the more you stifle the breath of your own spirit. But the universe is patient. It will keep sending you the same lessons, the same synchronicities, and the same challenges until you are ready to hear them. It will keep trying to wake you up from the dream of people-pleasing until you finally open your eyes and see the world as it truly is, a place of infinite connection and profound meaning. The invisible force is pulling you toward your destiny, but you must be willing to let go of the shore. You must be willing to trust that the water will hold you and that the current knows where it is going. As the noise of the world grows louder, the need for internal silence becomes more critical. In that silence, you can hear the clicking of the universal gears, the subtle shifts in reality that signal a new synchronicity. This is not something you can find by thinking harder or trying to solve your life like a puzzle. It is something you find by letting go of the need to be liked, the need to be right, and the need to be in control. In the space left behind by those needs, the self begins to emerge, and with it, a sense of timing that is truly divine. You find yourself at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, not because you planned it, but because you allowed it. This is the secret of Carl Jung's vision, that the most profound experiences of our lives are often the ones we didn't see coming, the ones that were orchestrated by a force we can neither see nor fully understand. The fear of judgment is the last barrier to this state of grace. It is the ego's final attempt to maintain its illusion of separate, independent existence. But once you have tasted the reality of synchronicity, the ego's games no longer satisfy. You crave the truth, even if it is painful. You crave connection, even if it is terrifying. And you crave the fulfillment of your destiny, even if it means leaving behind everything you thought you were. The invisible force is calling you to a higher version of yourself, a version that is no longer afraid to be seen. It is calling you to shed the persona and embrace the numinous. It is calling you to become who you were always meant to be, before the world told you who you should be. This is the end of the life of people-pleasing and the beginning of the life of individuation. It is the transition from a ghost to a human being. The secret of synchronicity is that it is the love of the universe made visible, a constant reminder that you are part of a grand and beautiful whole. The fear of judgment is just a shadow cast by the light of your own potential. Walk toward that light, and the shadow will naturally fall behind you. Listen to the coincidences, honor the symbols, and trust the process. Your destiny is not something to be feared, but something to be lived. And in the living of it, you will find that the invisible force was never outside of you at all. It was the very heart of your being, beating in time with the universe. The path of the people-pleaser is a circular one, leading always back to the same exhaustion and the same resentment. But the path of synchronicity is a spiral, leading always deeper into the mystery of the self. Each turn of the spiral brings a new level of awareness, a new set of meaningful coincidences, and a new opportunity to shed a piece of the persona. The fear of judgment may follow you for a while, like a lingering scent, but eventually it too will dissipate in the fresh air of your authenticity. You will find that the world you were so afraid would reject you is actually a world that was waiting for you to show up. Not the perfect you, not the agreeable you, but the real you. Because only the real you can fulfill the destiny that synchronicity has been preparing for you since the beginning of time. Let this be the moment you stop seeking the approval of the many and start seeking the resonance of the one. Let this be the moment you realize that the invisible force is your greatest ally and your most trusted friend. The secret of synchronicity is that it is the universe's way of saying yes to your existence. It is the confirmation that you are exactly where you need to be, even if it feels like you are lost. The mask has served its purpose. It has kept you safe until you were strong enough to be vulnerable. But now, the time for safety is over, and the time for truth has begun. Step into the flow of your destiny and watch as the world transforms around you, reflecting the light of a soul that has finally decided to be seen. The intricate dance of synchronicity is a testament to the fact that our lives are not lived in isolation. We are part of a cosmic symphony where every note has its place and every silence has its purpose. The fear of judgment is merely a distraction, a discordant note that we allow to drown out the melody of our own lives. When we stop obsessing over how we are being perceived, we can finally hear the music. We can feel the rhythm of the universe and move in time with it. This is the ultimate expression of the invisible force. Not a command from on high, but a gentle invitation to join the song. The secret is that you have always known the steps. You were just too afraid of what the audience would think to start dancing. As you conclude this reflection, remember that Carl Jung did not provide us with a set of rules, but with a way of seeing. He invited us to look beyond the surface of things and into the deep, dark, and beautiful waters of the soul. He showed us that synchronicity is the bridge between the two, the place where the inner and outer worlds meet. The fear of judgment and the habit of people-pleasing are the anchors that keep us from crossing that bridge. But the bridge is always there, and the destination, your true destiny, is always waiting. The invisible force is calling. It is time to drop the mask. It is time to walk across. It is time to finally, truly become yourself.